Welcome to Weasel Digital, and today we're going to be looking at the TIE Reaper. We're going to be going over some builds for the TIE Reaper. TIE Reaper is the support ship for the Imperial side in Squadrons, and I have to admit that I seriously underestimated the Reaper early on. When looking at the TIE Reaper, its survivability is a little bit lower than other ships. Its damage capabilities is lower than other ships. So it really on the surface comes off as a purely support vessel. And to that end, I really had little to no interest in it. In reality, it's a very capable ship that can actually perform fairly well in combat, and it can fill a lot of very strategic roles. So that's where a lot of the builds here are aimed. So the first one we want to look at is what I call the Defender. And this is one that I've been using in fleet battles a lot, and that's what it's designed for, is fleet battles. It's designed specifically to defend your ships, so your light cruisers, your Star Destroyer. This ship is built for keeping them safe when you're playing defense in fleet battles. Primary weapon is ion cannon. We're not trying to kill incoming fighters and bombers. We're just disabling them. What that does for you is, you get that Y-wing, that B-wing, whatever, X-wing, lining up to do some kind of bombing run. If you're able to disable it with the ion weapons, they're floating dead in the water. It's easier for your capital ships to hit them. It's easier for your allies to hit them. You can do more damage with your ion cannons. It's easier for your turret mine to shoot at them, but it disrupts their attack. They've lost the lock on their target. They're no longer facing in the right direction. They didn't get to fire their missiles off. They didn't get to do their bombing run. They now have to reassess their situation, bug out, either retreat completely or line up for a new attack run. In any of those scenarios, you have seriously disrupted their ability to attack your capital ships. The left auxiliary, we're going with rocket turret. The rocket turret is defensively orientated. You can use it offensively against the enemy's ships, but it's mainly built here to be defensive. When you're defending one of your light cruisers, you throw this out just a little bit in front, and it'll help block incoming missiles that are aimed at your ships. When you're defending the Star Destroyer, I suggest dropping this rocket turret up in between the shield generators. That way, anyone making attack runs on those shield generators, this rocket turret will hopefully shoot down those incoming missiles. The right auxiliary, we're using the turret mine. Turret mine gets deployed just like the rocket turret. I would deploy them very close to each other. The turret mines just set up and start doing damage to anyone within range. It just starts shooting at them. So it's just an extra gun you have. This will help kill incoming attackers. It'll help finish them off before they can retreat. It just adds DPS to your side to help protect your ships again. It's not a lot of DPS, but you'd be surprised at how effective those turret mines really are. And combined with those rocket turrets and your own ion cannons, you can do a very good job of keeping your capital ships alive for a lot longer. Countermeasures are seeker warheads. It's just generally a good countermeasure for this ship, for this game as a whole. This is one where you could use the chaff particle countermeasures. Again, you're using it in a defensive stance to protect certain points, either the capital ships or strategic locations on your Star Destroyer, things like that. I don't find, though, that they last long enough to really be all that effective. They only last for 3 seconds, so you really have to time out when you're going to use those. really your rocket turrets or just being aware of and shooting down missiles yourself with your ion cannons is much more effective than the chaff particles. The seeker warheads can intercept those same missiles and can keep yourself safer. Just all around better scenario. Now, a lot of these Reaper builds, I'm going to have hull, shields, and engines picked out. But adjust these as you see the need, as it works for you. In most of the other ships, the hull, shields, and engine selections I'm making tend to be directly influenced by what role you're trying to play. Do you need speed? Do you need a lot of maneuverability? Do you need more health? Do you need more defenses? With the Reaper, since you're typically playing more of a support role, these can be swapped pretty easily just based on what kind of performance you want out of the ship. For this one, I'm picking Agile Hull, Standard deflectors, and the Microthrust engines. I want the higher maneuverability so I can better target incoming missiles, better target incoming ships, so I can quickly maneuver around, drop the turrets where I want, and then get back into combat. Maneuverability on defense to me seems more important. But do adjust those as needed. And a good example of an adjustment here is what I call the reinforced defender. And that's picking up the reinforced hull and the fortified deflector. In that case, you're going to increase your hull, increasing your health, and you're going to increase your shields. Now, when you're playing defense, the fortified deflector increases shields but lowers shield regeneration. When you're playing a purely defensive role, you tend to have breaks where you can regen those shields. So that missing shield regeneration isn't a big deal when you're playing defense like this. The higher max shields gives you better survivability. So this is a perfectly valid change that can really help you out. The reinforced hull lowers your maneuverability and acceleration, but increases your max health. Again, you're going to be able to spar with incoming attackers better. You're going to be able to joust them, survive those kind of scenarios, and that can be very valuable. You do lose that maneuverability, which I find important for targeting. So there's your trade-off there. So pick out what you want to do there, what you think works well. Increasing shields, again, is a good idea because you do have those breaks. So that one, the defender, is built just strictly, you're going to be playing defense. Drop those turrets, ion any incoming attackers, make sure to prioritize any missiles you see. Shoot down those missiles because those have a really high impact on your capital ships. So shooting those down before they land is very important. And while that defensive turret that you have is good at that, don't leave all your trust in that rocket turret. You should focus on those missiles also. Our next build is the supporter build. This is actually good for both game modes, fleet battles, and for dogfights. There's one change I would probably make between the two, and that's going to be with the shields. But what we're going to do for the supporter role is we're going to go with our ion cannons, supply droids, tactical shields. And we play these differently depending on which game mode we're in. Okay? Switching out the primary weapons for the regular cannons is perfectly acceptable. In fact, in dogfight, I would probably go with the standard laser cannons. In fleet battles, I'm going to go with the ion cannon. The left auxiliary, the supply droid, that repairs and rearms allies. So you just drop that out there in space, they can pick it up. Just like the ones that already exist in dogfights. The right auxiliary tactical shield adds a 500 point shield to the target that you fire it at. These are great at helping to keep your team alive. In dogfights, you're going to be out there kind of mixing it up with your team. What you want to do is find a really good pilot and stick to them like glue. When they start taking damage, drop that supply droid. Whenever your tactical shield recovers, fire it off at them. Make sure you keep them stocked and supplied. If they really are a good pilot, they're going to notice you doing this, and they're going to keep you alive because you're keeping them alive. When I'm playing my interceptor, having someone shoot a tactical shield at me or drop a repair when I need those repairs or to refill my missiles, you've become my best friend. I'm going to make sure no one shoots you down. Your defense is my primary priority because I know you're going to repay that. So find someone good to stick with, back them up, they'll back you up. I find in those kind of situations in a dogfight, standard cannons might be a little bit better. Ion cannons are pretty good though because you can disable people and then that person you're helping out will be able to finish them off easy. For countermeasures, we're going to go with Seeker Warheads. I like the standard hull for this build. There aren't a lot of great hulls in here. The increasing shields while reducing your health isn't great. This one lowers your max health again. Not wonderful. Reinforced hull lowers your acceleration and maneuverability too much to really be useful. So standard hull is what I stick with. In fleet battles, I would go with the fortified deflector. In dogfights, I'd probably go with the standard deflector shield. Reason is, in dogfights, I'm going to be getting hit more. I'm not going to have breaks to recharge those shields from the fortified deflector. In fleet battles, you're going to be standing back a little bit from the main combat, so chances are you'll have time to refresh those fortified deflectors whenever they get damaged. And for your engine, you're going with the twin ion engine in any case, basically. So what we're looking at here is in dogfights, like I said, you find someone, you stick with them. In fleet battles, what you're going to be doing is there's kind of an imaginary line out there where if you're on offense and the defenders cross that line, your ships start attacking them. You want to be near that line. If someone comes after you, eye on them to shut them down, run for safety. But what you want to be is a closer resupply, repair, and shielding point than your ships. So that when your allies are making bombing runs, are out there dogfighting on offense, and they start taking damage or they've made their attack run and they need to come back for rearming or repairing, you're the first source for that, and you can fix them up and get them back into combat faster than them going all the way back to your light cruisers or your capital ship. On defense, you can just keep your team stocked with those kind of supplies, with repairs, with shields, while also ioning any incoming attackers. With those ion cannons, you can get a little aggressive on offense and fleet battles by taking out enemy capital ship shields too. So you can get a little aggressive if you feel like that's necessary. Although typically it's better if you just stay back from that front line just a little bit and just help those people that are coming back for repairs. Next up, for the Reaper, we're going to do a disabler build. This build is built specifically for dogfighting, and it's a nuisance build. It really aggravates people, so it's fun to use. I'm going to go with the standard laser cannon. Now, the standard laser cannon gets a lot of bad rep. It is one of the lower damaging standard laser cannons, but not by a great degree. We're talking like 440 DPS versus 460 DPS. It's not a huge difference. So the standard laser cannon is actually fine. It's quite effective. We're going to go with the tractor beam and the ion missile. Ion missile does 6,000 ion damage. That is enough to strip the shields and deactivate any enemy ship. That makes them a very easy target. So you can target and finish them off with your standard laser cannon. The tractor beam requires a lock. It can only be done within 750 meters. It doesn't have the 1,000-meter range of most missiles and whatnot. But when you hit it, it severely slows down the enemy unit, making it easier for you to target them and hit them with your standard laser cannon. Both of these also make it easier for your allies to target and finish those people off. We go with our Seeker warheads and standard hull, shields, engine. Again, change those up as you see fit, as you're comfortable. I don't find that you need super high maneuverability on this build because your ions and your tractor beams are going to be disabling enemies and making them easier hits. So you don't have to sacrifice the same kind of things to get that added maneuverability here. You can go with a pure disabler build and swap out your standard laser cannons for ions, but then you have to keep in mind that you do not have a lot of damage. Even though your standard cannons are the lower damage range, the ions do even less damage. So even though you knock the thing out, you're not going to be able to do much damage to them with those ion cannons. So you really need to make sure that you have a strong team here. If you have a strong, dependable team, then those ions are a good trade. You can just strip shields and disable ships, hit tractor beams, ion missiles, and really just leave a lot of vulnerable targets for the rest of your team to finish off. Next up is the Shield Breaker. Now, you wouldn't necessarily think that this would be a great Shield Breaker type ship, but it is actually one of the best Shield Breaker ships. Your TIE fighters can do some really impressive shield breaking. Your bombers can do pretty solid shield breaking. But this TIE Reaper is actually well designed to be a shield breaker. The ion cannons, of course, are going to be our main weapon with 1,680 DPS to the ions, to the shields. Left auxiliary, we're going to be going with our ion torpedo, which does 24,000 ion damage. That is enough to strip a lot of shields away from those enemy ships, leaving them very vulnerable to the rest of your attacks. And to the rest of your team's attacks, really. And then we're going to go with the ion missile, which does 6,000 ion damage. This can be used against players also, but the main focus of this build is to target those capital ships. Now, there's a long cooldown on your ion missile and torpedo, 20 seconds, 25 seconds, but they have a long lock-on range of 1,500 meters. So typically what you're going to want to be doing with this build, flying in, starting that lock at 1,500 meters, waiting till you get between 500 and 600 meters. So somewhere under 600 meters, fire off both missiles. These two missiles will then go in, they'll impact with those shields, and they'll strip the shields off very well. On top of that, you have a lot of shots with these. The ion torpedoes, you actually have 3 shots. The ion missile, you have 6 shots. So, by firing both, you're going to do 30,000 ion damage, and you can fire both of them 3 times, which gives you 90,000 ion damage potential. Plus, you still have 3 ion missiles left over after that for another potential 18,000 ion damage. So there's a lot of ion damage potential in this Reaper. If you plan accordingly, you see your team is got the advantage, you're going to go on offense pretty soon, swapping out to this guy and being in that offensive position so you can get a jump right away on the enemy and just strip their shields before the rest of your team even comes in to do attacks is amazing. It's very demoralizing to the other team to just see all their ships all suddenly lose their shields and you just start doing hull damage right away. You don't have to fight through all that shield. It's incredible. So this is a very powerful shield breaker ship. For countermeasures, we're going to go Seeker warheads just to get rid of those missiles. Standard hull, fortified deflector, twin ion engine. We're going to standard hull because we don't want to slow ourselves down here. Acceleration maneuverability is going to make us easier to get hit. It's an okay trade. You could go for that trade. However, we want to stay alive long enough to get several of these missiles and torpedoes off, so I don't know if I would go that way. Fortified deflector is good. The role you're going to be doing here is coming in, making an attack run, dropping those missiles, and bugging out so you can wait for that cooldown. So you should have time to rebuild those shields, and the extra shields should keep you alive on those attack runs. Twin ion engine, because really there's not much here that's going to increase our speed. Slam engine reduces our speed. Propulsion engine only increases acceleration, and microthrust is for maneuverability. So there's nothing to switch out there. So your one potential switch is this one going to reinforced hull for the extra health for survivability. But you're going to be making those attack runs starting at 1,000 meter, fire the ion cannons, lock with your torpedo and missile, fire them off under 600 meters before 500 meters. Drop those shields so your team can just come in and do the damage that they want to be doing. The next build is what I call the Tactical Scrapper. And this is mainly for dogfighting. You can use it in other situations, but I find it's much more effective in dogfights than it is in fleet battles. The reason is in dogfights, things are going to be kind of confined. You're going to be fighting in smaller areas. Fleet battles, the battle can be spread way out to where it's really hard to get the squadron mask and targeting beacons to really be as effective as they could be. So the Tactical Scrapper is a support build again. We're going with our standard laser cannon so we can do some damage. We can knock out some enemy units. We're going to go with our Squadron Mask. What the Squadron Mask does is it temporarily hides all nearby allies from enemy radar. So it's going to be hard to lock onto them. It's going to be hard to see where they're at. You're not going to be able to get missile shot at them. All around makes it very great defensive tool. Lasts for 10 seconds. Makes your team nearly invincible for that 10 seconds if they're within that 750 meter range. The one downside is it doesn't work for you. So you are still going to show up on radar. You're still going to get targeted. And you're going to get blown out of the water. We'll talk about what you do about that here in a second. The other auxiliary is our targeting beacons. Now, targeting beacons is kind of the opposite. What this does is it automatically targets the enemy if they're within range. Lock on range is 1,250 meters. Once you fire this off, it'll mark those targets. It takes a little bit of time to chase them down depending on distance. Lasts for 20 seconds. While they're marked with this, they take 30% more damage. So it's easier to kill these targets. They show up very well on radar and whatnot so that they're easy to target. Helps for lock-ons, for missiles and all that kind of stuff. 30-second cooldown, but it does last for 20 seconds. So 20 seconds, and then your cooldown starts for 30 seconds. Then you're going to be able to fire it off again. So what you want to do in a dogfighting situation is you rush into those situations where there's 2 or 3 enemy units there, and facing off against 2 or 3 of your units, fire off both. Your guys are now almost impossible to hit and kill. Their guys are targeted, easier to hit and kill, take more damage, etc. You can alternate these effects to give yourself smaller boosts, but still effective and kind of cover a larger time frame of a battle. I like to fire both off and just really get a strong punch of a win in that little scenario. So always be looking for where you have multiple allies and they have targets in that area. Go in, help your guys out. This is a pure force multiplier kind of ship. We're going to go with our Seeker warheads for countermeasures. Since this is a dogfighting build, I want to be able to do some damage. On top of that, I need to be able to stay alive once I fire off my Squadron Mask. So I'm going with Agile Hull, Microthrust Engine, Standard Deflectors. I'm not going to have much time to recharge shields from the Fortified Deflector, so I'm sticking with Standard. Agile Hull and Microthrust Engines give me a very high maneuverability. One of the highest higher than any base ships, and on par with a really maneuverable interceptor or TIE fighter. What you're going to be doing is spending most of your time with your power to engines. Once you fire off your squad mask, you're the only target. At that point, you need to start doing drift maneuvers constantly. So you're going to do a quick drift. You're going to do another quick drift into another direction, another quick drift. You have to keep yourself alive because you're going to be the best viable target for the enemy to go after. So the goal is to keep yourself alive, do your boost drifts all over the map so that they're focused on you, but they can't kill you, giving your allies a really easy targets to shoot at. So again, this is great dogfighter build, very effective to turning the tides in those kind of scenarios. I actually have a sixth build for this one, and it's more for dogfighting, but it can be used in fleet battles, especially defensively. And I call this one the aerial denial. So we're going to go with our ion cannons. We're going to go with this one here, the turret mine, and then we're going to go with the seeker mine. We are going to stick with the seeker warheads. You could use the chaff again for the countermeasures because of how you're playing this one, but again, I think the seeker warheads are just kind of better all around, in my opinion. We're going to stick with the light hull, or the agile hull, sorry, and the microthrust engines for that added maneuverability bonus, and we're going to go with standard deflectors. Now, the role of this ship, especially in fleet battles, is going to be denying a piece of property. You can set up near repair so that you can easily get repaired if needs be. You can just set up anytime you see someone coming in at you. You drop the seeker mine and the turret mine, and you just stay in that area. I would actually shoot the turret mine, fly to it, and then drop the seeker mine somewhere nearby it. And then you're going to stay right there. You're just going to kind of circle that area and use that as defense. The turret mine will attack anything that's incoming. If anything gets close, the seeker mines will go after it. You have ion cannons, so if someone's coming in at you, you can disable them. Then you can continue to shoot them. Your turret mine can shoot them, and if they happen to drift close enough to that seeker mine, that's going to jump on them and do a lot of damage. So the entire point here is look for those people that are coming in at you, make your little defensive sphere with your turret mine and your seeker mine, disable anyone that's coming in after you, and you really become a obstacle. People want to take you out because you're a threat, but at the same time, anyone that comes at you has to deal with being deactivated, having a mine and your ion cannon shooting at it, and if they get too close, seeker mine's going to jump on them. And that's really annoying, because if they target your mines, then you're free to disable them. If they target you, then your mines are free to target them. And it's just a really difficult ship to deal with. So, if you have any kind of competent players on your team, they're going to be able to see you doing this and target anyone that's coming in after you, help you finish those guys off. But it really sets up a defensive sphere where you have a lot of added survivability, because any encroachment into that defensive sphere puts the enemy at risk. This can be really great for holding areas or for assaulting groups of people. Again, if you see like a group of a couple of your players dogfighting with a group of a couple enemy players, you can fly in there, drop those mines, start hitting people with those ion cannons, and really cause a lot of panic in the enemy ranks as they're trying to deal with all these different issues. Defensively in fleet battles, it can work very similar to our defender build. Again, we have the ion cannons, we have a turret mine, and we have a seeker mine to hit anyone that's coming in. Really the only thing we're giving up is that rocket turret to defend against missiles. And if you just take that role on, then that seeker mine's going to do a lot more damage to those incoming attackers. So it can play a very good defensive role in fleet battles also. So there you go. You have 6 very viable TIE Reaper builds. All of them serve their functions very well. This is a well-built ship that has a lot of flexibility to do different roles depending on how you equip it with those auxiliaries. Again, hull, shields, engines, adjust those as needed. Adjust those for your comfort levels, whatever works best for you. But with that, you should be able to put together some very nice ship builds for your TIE Reaper to support your teams, to be a force multiplier. I hope to see you out in battle. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.